Have you ever just stopped and wondered why our world is filled with such wildly different cultures? And I'm not just talking about food or customs. I mean, it goes so much deeper than that, right? It's about how we think, how we feel, the very reality we perceive. So let's get into it, because the answer might be hiding in something we use every single day, maybe without even thinking about it, our language.
Seriously, just think about it for a second. We're not talking about small little variations here. We're talking about fundamentally different ways of seeing the world. How on earth did humanity end up with such deeply contrasting, operating systems for reality?
Okay, so you've got some cultures that built their entire worlds on analytical logic, cause and effect, and then you've got others that built them on mystical relationships and metaphor.
Or how about this? Some societies put the individual right at the center of the universe, while for others, it's all about the collective, the group. That's the fundamental unit.
And get this, even time itself isn't safe. Some folks see history as this straight line of progress, one thing after another, while others experience it as a great big repeating cycle. So what gives? What's behind all this?
All right, Section 1, the hidden roots of language. The culprit, and this is based on some pretty fascinating new research, turns out to be language itself. But probably not in the way you're thinking. We've got to go way back to its origins.
For a long time, we kind of imagined that language just, poof, burst into existence from a single source, like one big mutation, one giant leap for mankind. But the science is now pretty clear that's a total myth. Language didn't have one root, it had a whole bunch of them. It actually grew out of several different abilities that evolved completely on their own.
Think of it like a recipe. There are 4 key ingredients that had to come together just right. First up, vocal learning. This is that super rare ability to mimic and make new sounds, something we actually share with birds and whales, which is kind of cool. Then there's pattern recognition. This gave us a sort of proto-syntax, the ability to see rhythm and sequence in the world around us. Next, gradual grammar. Look, grammar didn't just show up fully formed. It was built up slowly, piece by tiny piece, over countless generations. And finally, the engine that drove the whole thing, a uniquely human social motivation. This is that deep, powerful need we have to share things, to teach each other, and just to connect.
Okay, so if these 4 ingredients can mix and match in different ways to create all these different languages, what's the result? Well, the result is that each unique linguistic recipe ends up creating a totally distinct blueprint for the civilization that speaks it.
So let's nail down that term, a linguistic blueprint. What is it? It's the deep, foundational structure of a language, and it's so much more than just a tool for talking. Think of it as the very container that holds a culture's way of thinking, its emotional landscape, its entire model of reality. Here's a way to think about it. Imagine a landscape, right? Language is like the water that carves out the rivers and valleys. Over centuries, those channels become the default pathways for a culture's thoughts and feelings. It doesn't tell you what to think, but man, it powerfully shapes how you think.
So, the crucial point is this, and this quote from the research just sums it up perfectly. Culture follows the geometry that language creates. The entire shape of a culture, its philosophy, its art, its social structures, it's all guided by the underlying geometry of its language. Wild, right?
Okay, that's the big theory. But how does this actually play out in the real world? Let's switch gears and look at some concrete examples to see how this blueprint really does build entirely different worlds.
Now, what I love about this is how it connects those kind of abstract ingredients to real, tangible history. You can see right here how a strong foundation in vocal learning leads to these powerful oral traditions, like the Greek epics, or how the way a language's grammar evolves over time can literally steer its long-term philosophical direction. And check this out, even the writing system itself defines how fast a culture's ideas can grow and change. Every single piece of that linguistic recipe has a direct cultural outcome.
And this slide just brilliantly illustrates how deep these effects can go. I mean, just take writing systems. You have Chinese characters which are pictographic. That system creates incredible stability and cultural memory over thousands of years. But then you have an alphabetic system, like what the Greeks had, and that allows for this super rapid recombination of sounds and ideas, which just fuels conceptual innovation and philosophy. So 2 different writing tools, 2 completely different paths for intellectual history.
And because of all this, each linguistic tradition develops what the researchers call philosophical attractors. What's that? It's basically a default way of thinking that a language just encourages. You can see it right here. The structure of ancient Greek just pulls its speakers toward analytical, cause-and-effect thought. Persian pulls you toward the metaphorical. Chinese guides its speakers toward concepts of harmony and morality, while the traditions of India lean way more toward the metaphysical. Each language has its own intellectual gravity. And this is a huge deal, because these default modes end up shaping everything from a culture's legal system to its scientific method.
And it's the exact same story for emotion. The way a language packages and describes feelings creates a sort of collective emotional geography. And this is why we can talk about a Greek tragic sensibility, or a Persian romantic mystical worldview, or that famous Russian heroic melancholy. The language itself is providing the color palette for a civilization's entire emotional life. It influences everything from art and poetry to how people understand things like heroism and tragedy.
So, after this massive tour of global history, what does this all mean for you, right here, right now? Let's bring this all the way back home.
Okay, so if there's one thing to take away from all this, it's this. The language you speak isn't just some tool you use to get your point across. It is the operating system running in the background of your mind. It's shaping your perceptions, your assumptions, and the very world you experience every single day.
At the end of the day, we really have to rethink the whole relationship between language and history. As the researchers conclude, language isn't just another piece of the cultural puzzle, it's one of the main engines driving the whole process. It's a foundational cause, not just some side effect.
And that leaves us with a final and pretty fascinating question to chew on. If your language lights up certain pathways of thought, what other pathways does it leave in the dark? What ideas, what connections, what entire realities does your language, by its very structure, maybe prevent you from ever seeing?